Namaste, friends, and welcome back to the podcast. This week, we are going to talk about seasons of overwhelm. This topic is coming up for me because summer is always a season of overwhelm for me. I am running a business and I still have two children at home, and I want to be present with them and do fun things, but I also have to work and, of course, take care of the house and do my own self-care practices and all of the things, right? We all have the pressures that we have in our lives, and we all have many things competing for our time, our attention, our energy. And it can feel certain seasons of life can feel really overwhelming. And so what do we do about that, right? How do we return to balance? How do we figure out how to navigate these overwhelming seasons of life, even if they're wonderful seasons? It doesn't have to be something terrible is happening in your life for you to feel overwhelmed. It could be that there's lots of wonderful things happening in your life, but they're still pulling you in many different directions. And that still leaves us with this sense of being out of balance and overwhelmed and falling behind. A lot of times there's that sense of I'm not doing enough. I'm not, in my case, maybe spending enough time with my children, or I'm not dedicating enough time to my business, or I'm not exercising enough, or I haven't, cooked an actual meal in 3, 4, 5 days. I'm falling behind in nourishing my family, right? We can feel this sense of I'm not enough, or I am not doing enough. And so how do we manage that? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get into that, I do want to invite you to my monthly Sangha. It will be on July 15th. This is a monthly gathering that I host where a community of people come together. We talk about a particular topic each month, and we're working our way through the kleshas. So in yoga philosophy, the kleshas are the 5 roots of suffering. So if you can believe it, according to yoga philosophy, and I do believe it, there are really only 5 reasons that we suffer in our lives. So any form of suffering you've ever experienced will fall into one of these 5 buckets. And so each month we are diving deep into one of them. And you don't need to know the previous ones to attend this month's. So please don't worry about that. If you didn't attend month 1 or 2, you can show up for month 3 and you will be right on time. We dive into the topic so that you can get a pretty deep understanding of it. Then we do some meditating, some journaling, and then there's an opportunity for us to reflect and share and be in community and talk about what came up for us. And it's really wonderful because we start to see that where and how we're suffering is not so different from what other people are going through and experiencing. And we start to understand that there's actually nothing wrong with us and there's nothing wrong with our lives. There might be things happening that we would really like to not be happening, but it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with it. It means that this is the journey of life. This is what it is to take the journey of life, to be a soul that inhabits a body and experiences all there is to experience here on this earthly plane. And when we can start to see that and really, really feel it on a cellular level, that's when we can start really stepping out of the suffering, changing the patterns, learning how to be with things instead of resisting them. But it's easier in community somehow when you feel like you're not alone, when you feel like, oh, wait, other people are experiencing this too. And this is how they're handling it. And you get ideas and you get inspiration and you feel compassion, and not only compassion for another person, but then that compassion then can be turned around on yourself. It's a beautiful experience. So I would love to see you there. It is July 15th. I will put the sign up link in the show notes. If you can't make it in person, I do record it each month and it goes up on my Substack page. So if you want to sign up, you can sign up either on my Substack page or I will put a link in the show notes. If you attend, beautiful. I would love for you to be there in person. But if it doesn't work out and you can't make it in person, then the day after, you can just head over to my Substack page and you will be able to watch the entire recording, go through the meditations, the journaling practices, all the reflection that I offer, and have the experience on your own. All right, so now on to the elusive idea of balance. So I think that balance is a myth. It is a bill of goods that we have been sold that we should be striving towards every day of our lives in every facet of our lives. And because it is a myth, it is a mythical creature, this balance, we constantly feel like we're failing because it doesn't actually exist, but we are reaching for something that doesn't exist. And so when we when we can't grasp it because it's not actually there, we think that there's something wrong with us. Why can't we just figure out how to balance this thing called life, how to balance time with our family, time with our friends, keeping our bodies healthy, keeping our homes clean and tidy, doing well at work, working on our spiritual self. Why is it that we just can't balance all of these things? Because it's impossible. So, right here and now, I want you to just take that in, pull yourself off the hook that you've been hanging from, and understand that this is an impossible task. And it's not that we shouldn't strive for some version of what we would consider to be balance, but true balance does not exist. And I'd love you to think about this if you take yoga classes, and I have a feeling many of my listeners must have at least taken a yoga class or two in their lives that you keep showing up to this podcast. So I think this will resonate. But when you go to yoga class, often there are balancing postures. Tree pose is a balancing posture, warrior three, things like that. These are some familiar ones. And what happens when you go into those balancing postures? You experience all the wiggles and the wobbles, right? So you might notice that your ankle is moving from side to side, or the weight in your feet is being distributed from side to side, or maybe even forward and back. You may find yourself, for example, tree pose. If you're standing in tree pose and you have those arms elevated over your head and up to the sky, maybe your upper body is actually kind of rocking a little bit from left to right. So what's happening there? What's happening there is that your neurological system is working really hard to prevent you from falling over. It's working really hard to keep you in balance. But what does that mean? Does that mean that you are able to stand there like a rock and not move at all? That's the mythical balance that I'm talking about, right? There is no human who can stand in tree pose without rocking from side to side, without little muscles engaging to try to keep you upright and not falling to the floor. It's a constant readjustment of the body, a constant sensing of what is happening. The brain and the nervous system are sensing what's happening inside the body, and then they are making sometimes micro, sometimes major adjustments to bring you back to center. But what happens, right? If you're rocking, you're in that tree pose, arms are overhead, you feel your body rock off to the right a little bit, naturally the body comes back to the center. But then what happens? Well, you might misshoot it a little bit and you go off to the left, or you might undershoot it a little bit and you kind of tilt back off to the right again. And we consider this normal and natural, right? We don't think that this is a problem. We know that this is what the body does to keep us centered so that we don't fall out of the pose. We also hopefully know, and hopefully your yoga teachers have impressed this upon you, that falling out of the pose is not a failure, right? Losing your balance and touching that elevated foot to the floor And then choosing to get back up and get back into the pose again is not a failure, it's the practice. It's the practice of balance. And so I'd like you to apply that metaphor to the rest of your life. So everything we do on the mat is just a metaphor for our actual lives off of the mat. And so this is a great metaphor for this idea of trying to balance all the plates, right? All the spinning plates in the air. I always imagine myself having like an octopus, having all of these arms and carrying all these, delicate plates, and one's going to drop and crack on the floor, right? And that would be a disaster, right? That would be horrible and that would be a failure. But actually, it would just be like falling out of the pose and then getting back in. And I want you to be able to feel the same way that you hopefully feel in a yoga posture in the postures of living, right? The postures of taking care of your family and working and having friendships and partnerships. These are all the postures of living. And in those postures, you're going to work to maintain some form of balance. But that form of balance is the shifting back and forth. It's the upper body rocking from side to side. It's the tiny muscles in the ankles and the calves engaging, keeping that foot steady and flat on the floor, the one that's holding you. Um, it is not us being a statue, right? It is not being a statue. A statue could stand in perfect balance without any movement, right? But we are not statues. We are human beings, and human beings are not meant to be statues. They are not meant to be inanimate objects. We are energy. We are coursing, moving energy all the time. And so the first step here is just accepting that and letting yourself, as I said, off the hook, having compassion for this fact that maybe for decades you've been chasing a concept that does not exist, that is non-existent, and that you have likely, as I have myself, put yourself under a lot of pressure to maintain something that is not maintainable. So first, just have compassion for yourself that that's what's been happening in your life. Next, what do we do about it, right? So when we go into a balancing posture in our class, in asana, yoga class, we do certain things to keep us in balance. So we engage certain muscles. We find a drishti point on the floor or maybe on the wall, but we find some point that does not move that we can fix our gaze upon. We decide how deeply we can go into the posture. So again, going back to tree pose, maybe you don't bring your arms over your head because for you, that's gonna put you out of balance every time. You're just not going to be able to stay upright in that position. You also choose where you place your foot in tree pose. Maybe it's a kickstand where your toes are still on the floor and your heel is resting against the standing leg. Or maybe the foot is on the inside of your shin, or maybe on the inside of your thigh, or maybe you could take full half lotus, right? Where is your edge? We've talked about the edge before. Where is the edge for you that allows you to stay in tree pose reasonably balanced, meaning you are standing on one foot, right? Not standing still, not a statue, but you are on one foot, even though your body is continuing to do all of those micro movements to keep you there. So that's what we have to ask in our postures of life, in our everyday living. Where is my edge? How far can I go into each of these postures in my life before, whoops, I'm out of balance, right? And if that happens, as we mentioned, it's going to happen when you're in tree pose, right? For whatever reason, maybe, you typically can put the arms over the head and do the whole half lotus, and you're usually pretty stable there. And then all of a sudden you just fall out, right? Who knows why? Something happened. It made you fall out. Maybe you moved your drishti. Maybe you lost your focus because balancing in class is a lot about focusing and not letting the brain wander off. Who knows why? Who cares why? It doesn't actually matter. What matters is that you choose to get back in and you choose to support yourself compassionately in that way and get yourself back into the posture in a way that's going to allow you to maintain the posture. And that, again, that is the same in life. So we have to decide in each pose, like, how much can I work without throwing myself completely out of balance in the other areas of my life? How much can I spend time with my friends or watching TV or doing fun things or doing the hard things, right? The things like, I mean, the dumb hard things like cleaning your house and doing the laundry and mowing the lawn and making sure the gutters are empty and all these things that we have to do as adults. Adulting is dumb is what I always say. How much of that do we do versus how much rest, right? There's a lot of choices that we have to make in order for us to stay in balance. Just like in our postures, we make choices. And the choices we make determine how long we can hold the pose. And so that's what we need to do in our lives is, okay, how much can I devote to each one of these things before I start feeling out of balance? And for each person, the answer to that question is going to be very different. And often it's going to be different from day to day. So as an entrepreneur, I do have the flexibility that some days I work really long hours. I sit in this chair and I don't get up for 10 to 12 hours other than to go to the bathroom, eat something, get a glass of water. But there are other days where I work for 2 hours and I'm done. And there are other days that I take off entirely because something else is needing my time and attention that day. Not everyone I know has that same flexibility, but what I'm doing is illustrating a point that we all need to decide for ourselves when something is going to throw us out of balance, when we're exercising too much, when we're spending too much time on our spiritual growth. Yes, that is a thing. When we are maybe spending even too much time with our kids, and I know that can be a sticky topic, but I think that spending quality time with your kids is one of the, if not the most important thing that you can do in your life. Especially because these kiddos, they're not with us forever, right? My daughter is graduating and going off to college in August. She actually already graduated. She's going off to college in August. And it is abundantly clear to me how quickly childhood passes by. And so in this season right now, I am choosing to prioritize spending a lot of time with my daughter. And as a result, I'm going to be working less. I think these podcast episodes are going to be shorter and my newsletters are going to be shorter until the fall when she goes away. Because what balance looks like for me in this particular season is prioritizing spending time with her before she leaves. And so we all have to look at our lives and we have to look at each facet of our lives, see how much time we are devoting time, energy, attention, awareness, and then decide if it's in alignment with this, with where we are right now. If this is what balance looks like for you in this season, in this week, in this day, right? Each one of these things is a constantly moving, and I think that's why it's such a hard thing for us to grasp because it's constantly shifting and moving. It never lands. And we have to get very, very comfortable with that fact that this is an ever evolving, forever, as far as I can tell, until we are no longer here, um, way of life, that this is life, that it's constantly shifting, moving, evolving. And so there is no target to hit. There is only what do I need today, this week, this month, this year, this particular midlife season. And the answers to that is going to be different for each person. And it's going to be different for each person for each day, week, month, year, etc. So it requires us to just go internal a little bit and decide what is it that what does balance look like for me right now? What would keep me in the pose of my life? And keeping you in the pose means you're present, you're peaceful, you are joyful, you feel fulfilled. That's being present in the poses of life, right? When we're holding tree pose, we need to really focus. We need to find that tristy point. We need to keep our gaze there, keep our awareness there, and breathe in, continue breathing slowly and deeply. And when we do that, the posture feels pretty easy. Yes, there are wiggles and wobbles. Yes, there's swaying. Yes, there's engagement of muscles, but it actually doesn't feel that hard. There's a sense of internal calm and peace when we are focused and we are balanced. Balanced, I use that word loosely. So that's what it feels like in your life when you are devoting the time, energy, and attention to the things that are important to you in the right quantities. You feel that sense of calm, grounded peacefulness. And there's no rushing off to the next thing or feeling guilty that you missed something, because you have been very intentional about how you want to use your time. And there will always be, I want to put this out there because this is life, right? Things are always going to interfere, right? Things are going to happen that you didn't expect, show up in your life that are going to pull you in directions that you didn't expect. It's totally fine, right? It's going to pull you out of the balance. That's you falling out of the posture. That's you falling out of tree pose, right? Something happened, it pulled you out. But what do you do about it? That's the moment to decide to get back in. That's the moment to decide, actually, normally I can half lotus this tree pose, but today I got to bring it down to the shin because I just can't for some reason. Whatever's happening in my body, it's not working for me today. And in the postures of life, it's whatever's happening in my life. I can't half lotus today. I can't work 12 hours. I can't be the best mom and get dinner on the table and have the house completely clean. I can't, whatever it is, visit my parents or call them or do something that I feel like I should do, or a friend who's having a hard time. I really should call that person. They're having a hard time, but how am I fitting this into my schedule? Right? It's every day is a choice. But when we make the choice intentional, when we really think about what do I need today, is of greatest value to me today, and how can I divert my time and attention in a way that feels like I am in alignment, that's when you will step out of overwhelm and step into peace. And it takes practice and it takes compassion for yourself and it takes a willingness to not run on autopilot, to get out of autopilot. So many of us are living life on autopilot. This is what we do every day. This is how our nervous system operates every day. And it really does take a choice to say, I want to step out of autopilot. I want to be intentional. I want to choose to downregulate my nervous system so that life doesn't feel like a race every day. And I don't feel like I am losing that race every single day. There is this concept of enough, which I love. When I was growing up, my mom used to all the time when we would want to watch more TV or eat more junk food or whatever it was that we wanted to do when we were kids, she would always say, it's enough, right? It's enough. And we have to bring that concept into our own everyday lives and decide what is enough. What are we carrying that we think we have to carry? We think we have to do in order to be a good wife, a good mom, a good daughter, a good friend, a good employee that we actually can release. It's actually, we overshot it, like way overshot it. Where is it enough? And I can't answer that question for you, right? I'm always pointing you back towards yourself. That is what the show is all about, and it's about what the monthly Sangha is about, and it's about what my newsletter is about. It's all about asking you to turn around and look at yourself and answer these really hard questions. And also to show you the compassion that I hope that you show yourself because you are not alone. I have struggled with this and I still find myself struggling with it. And it's why I'm recording this episode because I recently have found myself in that pressure cooker of trying to be all things to all people and to my business and even to my dog and on it goes to my yoga students, right? So I have had to, I have fallen out of the pose. I've fallen out of tree pose, right? And I'm coming back in and I'm regrounding and recentering. And it's why I decided to record this episode for you guys today, because I think if it's resonating with you, it may resonate. If it's resonating with me, it is likely to resonate with you. So get out a journal, get out a pen and a piece of paper and start writing, right? You can write down, you can free flow it, or you can really start asking yourself the question like, okay, over the next 3 months, this summer season, what is really, really important to me? What is going to make this summer season a good one that I can look back and be like, that was great. And then how do I let go of things that are going to prevent me from enjoying this season? And you can do this small scale, large scale. So this is small scale, summer season, right? You can do it if you're still in your parenting journey, that season of life, right? How can I make that season of life one that I can reflect back on and say, yes, that was exactly what I wanted it to be. That doesn't mean it's not going to be hard. That doesn't mean that you're not going to experience tremendous challenges. I hope you don't, but life's and it does what it does. It means that you are able to show up to the good, to the hard, to the wrenching in the way that you want it to show up because you weren't putting yourself in this pressure cooker of expectations that are unrealistic. So whatever season you may be in, maybe it is, I said, the summer season, the season of parenting, the season of midlife, a hard season. Maybe you're going through something really difficult. Maybe it's something with your health or something with a health issue with someone that you love, right? What are the priorities of this season? And then what can be let go? What can really be fully released without guilt? Right? That's a tough one for me. I grew up Catholic, Catholic guilt. What can be fully released? And what, when you reflect back, will you be so glad you let go of so that you could dedicate more of yourself to the things that were most important to you? And keep coming back to this idea. I want you to keep that tree pose in your mind as a visualization. See yourself swaying side to side. See yourself wiggling and wobbling in the foot and ankle. See yourself falling out of the pose and remind yourself that there is no real balance, that it is a constantly ever changing, ever shifting state of being, and that that's okay. All right, my friends, I hope that was helpful. I will talk to you next week. Please go over, sign up for that Sangha July 15th. While you're at it, sign up for my newsletter. I would love to have you on there. It's a great way for us to communicate. Podcast is a little bit one-sided, right? Mostly I'm just talking at you. So I love my newsletter because I get lots of replies and same on Substack. So if you want to join Substack, that's amazing. I'm over there more days than not. Let's put it that way. I'm over there more days than not. So great way for us to stay in touch and communicate. All right, my friends, I hope you have a lovely week. Namaste.